Hello, everybody. Welcome to one of our weekly webinars or bi-weekly webinars. My name is Gabriel Bergeron. I am an account manager here at IT Cloud. We're here with Stephen Nichols, Director of Solution Engineering at ACRONIS. You've met him before. He's been at a ton of our events and he's presented as well in the past for us. So great to have him. He has a lot to say and a lot to show you guys today. How MSPs can fill M365 compliance gaps, backup, and security. I'll let, of course, Stephen lead the way with the rest of the presentation. I do want to, however, let you guys know to stay until the end for questions and answers. You can always ask your questions and answers at the corner if you're in the live event now, and in the recording, of course, you can always send your questions to partners with an S at itcloud.ca if you want to reach out to us. So be sure to listen up. And at the end, of course, for any sort of news and what's upcoming, please stay tuned. So again, thank you, Stephen, for being here. And the mic is yours.
Excellent. Thanks for the introduction. So let's get right into it. So first of all, just in case anyone isn't familiar with who ACRONIS is, we've been around for a little over 20 years, started in 2003. Our headquarters are in Switzerland, but we are truly a global company. We have over 1,800 employees spread across the globe in about 45 different countries. We service about 20,000 service providers and over 750,000 business and end customers, both directly and through those service providers. From a cybersecurity point of view, there's about almost 200 million threats and over 60 million malicious emails that we blocked in 2023. I only expect those numbers to be even higher in 2024 when we see the final accounting. We also do have a number of data centers, including two that are in Canada, one in Toronto and one in Vancouver. So data sovereignty, definitely something that we take seriously. I want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we hear a lot of MSPs are facing. So first of all, we know that the attack and security perimeter is kind of moving beyond the endpoint. So, if you look historically, several years ago, especially pre-COVID, there was, a lot of the protection was done by making sure you had a solid firewall, that you had everything in the office, you had to connect through VPN, and that's really how we secured things. The evolution with bring your own device, a lot more working from home, it started to become about the endpoint. It started about making sure that you could secure things at the endpoint. What we're now seeing is that we have to look beyond just the endpoint. Almost half of the breaches include some kind of compromised credential. If we look at one of the more high-profile cases in the last couple of years, which was the ransomware attack at the MGM Grand. That was definitely a phishing. There was someone who reached out to support, was able to get credentials reset, and shut down the casino, the elevators, everything with that ransomware attack. And that was really just based on being able to get in and impersonate someone. So certainly credentials until it's fully contained is more than 2 months. And that means that a lot of the threat actors have learned to be patient, to move slowly. And so it's really about making sure that area is protected in depth. And even if they do get into an organization, they don't have the ability to continue to live off the land. They don't have the ability to expand that reach. And talking about email, we've seen a dramatic increase in the first half of the year in the number of attacks. And this is driven by a couple of things. First of all, email is about the easiest way to get something inside of an organization. And not only that, but the advancements in AI, meaning that the threat actors are using AI to create much more compelling phishing emails. Over 90% of the attacks begin with an email, whether that's a phishing attack, whether it is just some kind of a link that you can click on. So all of those things really come down to the fact that Email is an important business critical application. You want to make sure you're getting legitimate emails, and relying on training end users to be able to tell the difference between a legitimate email and a phishing email just isn't efficient. It's certainly part of the equation, but you need programmatic ways to make sure that those malicious emails aren't ending up in front of those end users. The other thing that we see a lot of feedback on is about the fact that when you have a number of different tools, maybe you're using one tool for backup, one tool for security, something else to manage licenses, you don't really have a common view across the organization. And that really does mean that it adds a level of overhead. And it also means that sometimes, because those systems aren't integrated or natively integrated to one another, that there may be cases where the indicators of attack are there, but they're not being surfaced because they're spread out across different systems. And that's why the majority of security leaders are actually planning on consolidating their security platforms. They're not looking necessarily of adding new tools, although as new threats come out, it's always important to be looking at what tools are available and are they addressing not only today's threats, but what's coming in the future. We know that Microsoft 365 is the #1 productivity tool in the world, right? There's no question. There's lots of other productivity tools out there, but without having Microsoft 365 and in most cases Outlook, almost all business communication would be changed and wouldn't be as effective. So of that, we also include things like Teams into that 365 area. There are just hundreds of millions of paid commercial users. On top of that, we also know that there's a lot of that business data that is only stored there. It's, in an ideal world, we know we want to make sure that it's, that we have redundant storage, but end users typically, may only store them on their endpoint and maybe send it to somebody else via email. But you also have just the business decisions, the capturing of meeting notes. A lot of that information only is existing in email. And the other thing is that it's a well-known thing that people kind of agree on in the industry, and that is that Microsoft provides great tools, but you need to layer additional security on top of those tools, because if you're just relying particularly if you're just relying on the standard tools that come with 365 and not the premium or the business grade tools, you're leaving yourself quite exposed, and you're leaving your customers quite exposed. And Microsoft even addresses this themselves in something that they call the Microsoft shared responsibility model. So this slide helps to identify sort of what Microsoft considers their responsibility and what is your responsibility. And we say your, ultimately it's the end user that is responsible, but in a lot of cases it's the MSP that is actually delivering that service, so that they're buying the seat, the infrastructure, whatever it is, from Microsoft, and then it's being properly secured and backed up and protected by the MSP. So certainly Microsoft is about making sure that there's the 365 cloud services are highly available, they're geo-redundant, that the recycle bin for very short, right, if someone selects the wrong email, they delete it, it goes in the recycle bin, they can self-recover. But that generally is limited to about 14 days. Yes, you can go in and change some of those settings, but you can't make that indefinite. So the majority of the recoveries that come from Microsoft, from the 365 backups, are from when that period ends, and generally they're within the first 90 days. But you can set the retention period to be much, much longer than that. And we also have certain industries that have requirements to retain that data, for 7 years, sometimes even longer. In that case, normally it's email archiving that we're looking at. That's something that we're in the process of launching as an augmentation to the backup that we have, and I'll show a little bit of that in the demo as well. From a security point of view, Microsoft does the data center security. They do the app level security. They have some controls over the users and the admins. But really, when you're talking about malicious activity, accidental deletion, ransomware attacks, any phishing, that is entirely the responsibility of the mailbox owner. Same thing when it comes to compliance, as far as data privacy and regulation controls, making sure that the solution, the underlying mail delivery solution, is compliant. Microsoft's all over that. But making sure that any of the legal requirements that you have, any of the other standards, that really falls to you. So because of these responsibilities, those actually expose some risks. So from a data protection point of view, that's about whether it's accidental deletion, it's slow recovery, limited retention periods. Certainly on the security point of view, the phishing, the ransomware, malicious insiders, and then from a compliance point of view, it's really about long-term retention and data leaks. So how can ACRONIS CyberTech Cloud help with that? Well, first of all, the ability to back everything up. So you can back up the mailbox, you can back up the OneDrive, the Teams. We'll take a look at all of that in a second in the demo. We can set an unlimited retention. Now, by default, I believe we set that to be a 90-day retention period, but certainly you can go in and even choose just an indefinite retention period for that. It also allows for granular recovery. So we can back up the entire mailbox, but just restore an individual mail item, whether that's putting it back in the place that it came from, or even restoring that to a different mailbox. Maybe the employee that has left, you've retained their data, and then there's a couple of emails that their manager needs in order to be able to follow up on. From a security point of view, it's about immutable storage. So it's making sure that those backups can't be altered or changed, making sure that they can be encrypted and protected with multi-factor authentication, as well as making sure that you have ransomware protection in place. So that both on the mailbox as well as on the endpoint. And then from a compliance point of view, it's about data sovereignty. So we have 54 different data centers, as we talked about earlier, including 2 in Canada. It's also about having a good audit log and transparency. One of the things you're going to see, for example, is when I go to access a mailbox later, it's going to actually let me know that it's going to be logged. It's going to be added to the audit log. Am I sure that I want to do this? So ACRONIS is kind of an industry leader when it comes to backup and data protection. Certainly, we've got a broad platform that provides security and backup and management. But at the same time, we've been doing backup for over 20 years. So we really understand that data control and visibility are important. So you need to know that the backups are being successful. You need to know where it is. It needs to be easy and scalable. So you need to have that UI is something that is straightforward, where you can quickly find and action items. You also need the ability to be able to quickly recover. And that is not only about the data transfer time, but it's also about being able to locate what it is that you actually need. And at the same time, it's about being cost effective. One of the questions I often get when we're talking about 365 is, comparing the premium SKUs from Microsoft that have some of the email security and some of the data backup included. Why would you look at ACRONIS as opposed to that? And one of the main reasons I find that is a driver of that is Microsoft, generally, you have much lower margins. So when you're with ACRONIS, you have the ability to offer those services in a way that will allow you to do that really cost effectively and maximize the margin for you as the MSP. So you can offer very cost effective solutions to your customers in a way that is still profitable for you. So the next thing I want to kind of talk about is email security. So we know that again, we talked about it earlier, 90% of the attacks or more come in through email. We know that the number of those attacks is increasing. The complexity, especially with the use of AI, is making it more and more difficult to be able to detect those. So you really, it's about phishing, it's about spoofing and account takeover. It's about those advanced evasion techniques, as well as the zero-day attacks. So having the ability to minimize those risks, have all of that in place, but in an easy to use situation where you don't have to be necessarily an absolute expert in email security. You can leverage the tools at your disposal, and also the incident response team. So if you have an email that you question whether or not it has been properly identified, whether you think it's something that's malicious, that was not marked as malicious, or conversely something you think that's a false positive, you can actually have the incident response team, who are absolute experts in email security, look at that email and confirm the verdict that's on it. But before we actually get to the point where the incident response team is even going to have to look at that email, it's going to go through multiple layers. And the nice thing about this is, first of all, it doesn't need any MX record changes. So we actually leverage transport rules on Microsoft, so it's still being delivered to the organization, just not to the user's mailbox. When we look at some of the other solutions that are out there, they're utilizing one of two ways. They're either doing an MX record change, meaning that mail is being directed to them and then being sent to the 365 organization after it's been filtered. Some of the challenges of that can be that MX record change can expose what that email security solution is, which means all email security have areas which they're better or not as good at detecting. And so that if that's known to the threat actor, if they're intentionally targeting that domain, they may be able to adjust their attack for that. It also does mean that there can sometimes be longer delays in delivering that email because it has to go through that filter, and it basically is relying on the internet twice to be delivered. The other method that a lot of other solutions use is the API method. Now, we can use the API method. It's certainly something that's available to you. The risk with that is the mail gets delivered with the API method to the end user mailbox, and then is scanned, and if found malicious, is removed. Now, that usually only takes a few minutes, but there is a risk during that time that malicious email is in the mailbox. And if it's a phishing email, they could click on it and enter their credentials. If it's a malicious email, they could click on it and infect their system with ransomware. The advantage of the transport rule is you get that very rapid, again, the delay is normally 20 to 30 seconds for the vast majority of mail, and it doesn't actually hit the end user's mailbox until it's gone through and been marked as not being malicious. So the multiple layers that we look at, first of all, we want to look at spam. We know there's the largest amount of emails that are unsolicited and that you don't actually want. But it's also the one where it's most likely to have false positives. And so we actually deliver all the spam. We mark it, we identify it, and that allows the client itself to be able to filter that into a spam folder. But it means that if something does get a false positive for spam, the end user still has that in their mailbox. It's just filtered into their junk folder or their spam folder. We then go through the anti-evasion, the anti-phishing, anti-spoofing, static detection, and threat intelligence. And those are all looking for different types of threats. Basically, we're doing a recursive opening. So a lot of cases, if there is a link, that link will then go and redirect to another link and take you somewhere else. And so we're actually looking all the way down that chain. And that also then takes us to our next generation dynamic detection. And this really helps against 0 days, APTs. So this is, if you think of this sort of like a sandbox, this is acting as if, what would happen if we were to click on this and go all the way through and take the action? Is there something that looks like a Microsoft login page but actually isn't, for example? We're able to do that, like I said, all of that in just a few seconds, and then be able to, if it's malicious, not deliver the mail, and if it's not malicious, be able to deliver it. So we have a really strong story across the entire Microsoft stack. So whether that's being able to back up Azure VMs, by doing that in an agentless way, right? So we can see all of those VMs within an Azure account. Whether it's backing up your local Hyper-V, Windows Server, Windows PC, SQL servers, Active Directory, but also what we're kind of focused on today, which is 365. But we're not just limited to Microsoft. We have an ability kind of across the board to support a whole bunch of different solutions. And then when we're talking about compliance, when we're talking about security, I'm always a fan of frameworks. Frameworks are really a good way to talk about those things, and the reason for that is it is frameworks that make sure that we're not missing gaps, and we're talking about compliance gaps. So compliance certainly is kind of a security concern, but that could be regulatory compliance, it could be security compliance, and so I like frameworks like the cybersecurity framework because it talks about you know all of the different pillars. So, and because Acronis itself, through Acronis CyberTech Cloud, is truly a platform, it allows us to be able to protect all of those vulnerable surfaces and kind of touch each of those areas of the framework. So, just not going to read out the entire slide, but for example, under govern, it's really about having like role-based management, centralized policy management. So really, you have an ability to look at the entire organization, whether those are um, the mail, the workstations, whatever it is. From an identify, certainly the ability to understand through things like device sense, where we can actually passively scan a network. The ability to be able to import an entire 365 organization and see all of the data that's there. Being able to look at data classifiers as part of our DLP solution. From a protect, certainly we have our patch management, our security, our data loss prevention, as well as our security awareness training. Under detect, certainly the behavior-based engine and exploit engine. So we have a full EDR, XDR, MDR solution that really does protect and is incident-based. And then once we get into respond, once the incident has happened, we have the ability to rapidly respond to those incidents, as well as if you need to be able to do things like a forensic backup, remote access to those devices to be able to investigate. That gives you that ability to really dig in when something happens. And one of the key things is that recovery. So it's the ability to roll back from those attacks. It's the ability to be able to scan backups for malware to make sure that when we're doing that recovery, we're only recovering the actual safe files. So, all of those things across the board really is one of the reasons why I think we've got a really strong story related not only to 365, but across the entire area. And with that, I kind of want to get in now into a little bit of a demo and take a look and see where things are at. So hopefully it hasn't logged me out because I've been sitting idle for a couple of minutes. We'll find out in a sec when I go to click on something. So what we're looking at here is the Acronis CyberTech Cloud. This is our demo environment, and in here we've got a couple of customers that are set up, and we're going to spend most of our time today in the customer environment. But before we get there, I do want to kind of call up, we have the ability to go in and choose what can be protected. So if I'm just going to go and click edit here, we can see I have a number of different types of workloads that I can protect. So that, when we're talking about 365, I can protect mailboxes, OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams. And really what I'm doing when I'm setting up here is a menu. These are the services that are going to be available for this customer. Once you've actually configured them, that's when the billing is going to start, is when you're actually are protecting those workloads. So you certainly have the ability to, if you want to simplify the interface, if it's just going to be 365 you're protecting, you can take out some of the server and workstation things. But at the same time, generally we recommend leaving them all available. And the reason for that is you're not going to be billed for anything until it's actually being used. I'm just going to cancel out of that real quick. And I'm going to go over and we're going to take a look at this 365 organization. We're going to go in and take a look at AAA Design. So in AAA Designs, I've got things, a few things configured. I've got a M365 account. So the first thing we see when we first log in is our overview. So the overview is kind of our quick look at what's going on in the environment. Because with such a platform, we know that each individual customer maybe there's certain things that they're they're focused on. So this is all configurable. I can move these around. I can choose how I want this to be organized. And it is widget driven, meaning that I have multiple different widgets under different areas. So for example, under devices, I can show just the protection status of each of those devices. So when we're talking about 365, for example, I can have the cloud applications. So now it's going to show me all of the cloud applications I have, what the status of them are. So it gives me quite a bit of flexibility as to how I create that. And these same widgets that we use for this dashboard actually come into reporting. So reporting is certainly something from a compliance point of view that's really important. So we have the same ability. We've got a number of default reports that are kind of pre-built that can help you with the set of widgets that are already in place. But you can also go in and customize any of those reports. So you can create a custom, and again, exactly those same widgets we saw in the dashboard, I can go in and add those widgets in to the report. And those reports can then either be downloaded, I can choose to send it out, but I can also schedule that. So if I wanted to basically every morning when I come in to start my day, I want to see a quick report of the status of the 365 backups. I want to see the if there was anything detected in the email, I can go ahead and have that set up to schedule out. You can also use it to actually send out to your customers. If you want to show the value that you're bringing, you can have those reports sent out to them as well. So let's talk a little bit more about 365 from a device point of view. So I'm going to go down here. Again, I've got a bunch of things set up in this environment. I've got some virtual machines, some servers, some workstations. And so in order to find the devices that I'm working on, it actually will create organizational structure. So I actually have 365 here. So if I go to 365, this is our org we have set up. If I have more than one organization, I can actually, they'll show up in different places where I could see multiple organizations like I have here. So if you were to, sometimes within a company, they might have been a merger, there might be more than one organization, that is supported. In order to add a new 365, it's actually pretty straightforward. I'm going to go and click add. And I'm going to scroll down past all of the agent download that I want to do if I want to actually protect workstations or servers. Obviously, things like a Hyper-V environment, I can protect that at the hypervisor level. But if I go down to my applications, I actually have 365 Business Backup. When I click on that, it's going to take me out to the Microsoft logon screen. You're going to log in with the master administrator account. Which means we support, we don't ever have those credentials. You're entering those right into the Microsoft site. All you're doing is authorizing the creation of an API user. The purpose of that API user is for us to be able to see the organization, but it's also our ability to be able to back it up. So once you've created that, doesn't matter if that admin user changes their password. It doesn't matter if you've got modern authentication enabled. All of that's going to be fully supported. You'll notice under here we also have email archiving. So this is something that's in early adopter right now. So we're still rolling that out. We're still adding some of the features to it. If we have time today, we'll take a quick look at what we've got so far for archiving. But once that organization is added, you then have the ability. It's going to populate. So that it could take a little bit of time. What I recommend generally is setting up the organization, and then waiting a little while, coming back in a couple of hours to be able to set up the protection. It will automatically refresh throughout, so if new users are added, things like that, but you can also kick off a refresh if you want. And then we can go in and protect. So let's start with protecting the users. So we're going to go into all users. And the most straightforward way to be able to back up those users is to do a group protection. The advantage of a group protection is whenever a new user is added, they're automatically going to be protected. There's no need to go in and manage that when a new user is added. As long as you're protecting all users, it manages that. Now, if you remove a user, if you move them to a shared mailbox, it's going to continue to back them up. We don't charge though for shared mailboxes, so you get to that's generally the recommendation anyway from Microsoft when you're removing a user. If you were just to simply unlicense that user, what we're going to do is we're going to stop backing it up, and we're going to stop charging you for the seat, but we are going to charge you for that storage. Now, we don't delete that storage. We leave that there for you. You can go in and manually delete it. And we do that on purpose because just because a user's left the organization doesn't mean you want to necessarily get rid of their data. You can go in and remove it. That's not a problem. But by default, we do retain that for you. We have two different protection plans here. We have one that backs up the mailbox itself, which includes your contacts, your calendar, all of that sort of stuff. And we also have a separate one for OneDrive. And part of the reason we do that is we have an ability to, within each of these plans, we have some parameters that we can set. So we can choose the schedule, how often a day. You can go anywhere from once a day up to 6 times a day. And we can also choose the retention period. We have also an option under here, under the archive mailbox. We can turn that on. And we do have the ability to encrypt. Now, I highly recommend encrypting all of your backups. This is a non-production environment. These aren't real mailboxes. So just for ease of demo, we didn't turn the encryption on. It's not something, however, you can change afterwards. If you wanted to change the setting, you're going to have to revoke and apply a new protection plan. So one of the things you should make sure you have turned on when you set it up. From a retention period point of view, we do have here kind of a plan where we're going to retain the first backup of the month for 6 months, the first one of the week for 4 weeks, and we're every daily for 7 days. We could also change that to just have a simple same rule across the entire backup set. And we can also change them from backup age to number of backups, or we can actually just choose to keep them indefinitely. We do include unlimited storage. So if you do need to retain them indefinitely, like anything, there is an acceptable use policy. But in the most cases, you're not really going to exceed that, and it's not going to be a problem. Once I have those backed up, the other thing quickly, if I don't want to do this all groups, I can just select individual mailboxes and apply a protection plan, for that mailbox. I can also use AD groups. The advantage of this, maybe you've got an organization that has a large number of mailboxes in it, and there's a subset of those that you want to protect, but you want to be able to not have to go in manually select them all. You can use Azure AD groups, and then anytime a mailbox is assigned to that particular AD group, it will automatically be either added or removed from the protection. Let's take a quick look now at being able to recover a mailbox. So if I go into recovery, first of all, it's going to give me for this user both their OneDrive and their 365 retention points. So let's just look at the mailbox retention points for now. So I can go in and if I want, I could delete this particular recovery point. Not sure why you would probably do that on something recent, but it's certainly an option. And then when I click on recovery, I can recover the entire mailbox. This is usually only happens if someone maybe did something silly in Outlook and somehow deleted their file and all their mail or something like that. Much more commonly, you're going to be actually recovering individual mail messages. So when I click on this, the first thing that's going to happen if I have encryption enabled is it's going to prompt me for that encryption password, meaning that there's another layer of check and balance before I can actually access that backup. It is now going to show me that I'm going to be able to see backed up emails. I can download attachments and files, and it will actually be logged. So we actually do have an audit log. So it's going to record the user has accessed this mailbox, the time it does, what mailbox they accessed. I'm going to go ahead and click proceed, and it's going to take us into our mailbox. And within the mailbox, I can see I've got my inbox, my draft, so all of my folders and all of the mail items that I have in here. If I select one of the mail items, I've got a few things. I can actually show the content of that mail item, which is part of the reason that we audit that. I can send this as an email. So I can send this to any email address that I want. I can add an additional message. This particularly is useful if the user is no longer there and you want to be able to get this out of the area. I also do have the ability, and for some reason, it's not letting me. click out of here. Give me 1 sec. There we go. I also can recover this mail. So if I recover it, by default, it's going to go into that same organization. But because I've got 2 organizations set up, I could choose to recover that somewhere else. I can also do the same thing with an entire mailbox. Bit of an edge case, but it does give you the ability, for example, if you wanted to migrate mailboxes from one organization to another, as long as they're both set up under the same tenant, you'd be able to back up a mailbox in one organization and recover it into the other organization. I can also recover into a different mailbox within the same organization. Again, can be useful if you need to recover mail to a manager, whether it's for an investigation, whether it's because an employee's left the organization, whatever it is. By default, it's going to recover into recovered items. And that's because when you recover something, it's going to go into the same place it was originally. So if you're recovering something that was from a couple of months ago in a mailbox, it might be hard for that user to find it. So by default, it's going to go into the recovered items folder. They can then move it around themselves after that, but I can also browse and choose anywhere else within that mailbox if I wanted to put it into a different folder. But I also, of course, can just recover it back to its original location if I want to. And if I go ahead and click Start Recovery or Recover, and then I can also recover it as a PST file. What it'll do is it will convert that into a PST and then prompt you to that you can download it once it's done. So let's pop back over here into the organization and we'll take a quick look at OneDrive. You'll notice for OneDrive, very, very similar. I can either recover the entire OneDrive or the files and folders, and it's very similar to Mail. If we look at our SharePoint, we can look at all of our sites. And again, I can do either a group backup or individual sites. And the same thing for Teams. So I can either back up all teams or I can back up individual teams. So if I do a group backup, which is what we've got configured, this is just backed up once a day. And the only one of the other only limitations is individual conversations in Teams requires a different API access, and so it's not supported by the standard APIs, so it's not included in the backup. So now that we've got the ability to make sure we've got a good backup of all of the information that's in the 365 environment, that helps us with a compliance from the point of view of making sure that it's retained, making sure that if there is some kind of problem or attack, that we can recover from it. But really, one of the biggest challenges is about the ability to protect that email from ever getting compromised in the first place, and that's where email security comes in. So within email security, we have the ability to, and I don't have simulated incidents in the last week, so we're going to go a little bit further back in time here. So we have a few different incidents. So I have a threat here. We can actually see that it's marked as malicious. It's from a little bit a while ago, but I can go in and take a look at all of those things. It gives me the ability to take a look and understand that. I can just look, I can sort by different types of mail. It gives me quite a bit of capability to be able to do that. The other thing I can also do is, if this was something that I felt was not malicious, I certainly have the ability to, I can download it, I can export the scans if I want to, and I can also change the verdict. So if it's something that I felt, hey, this is something that is not malicious, I can go ahead and change that. We're not going to because it's actually is something that is malicious. And it does give me quite a bit of capability. There's a few other things that are also included. I have the ability from a channel point of view to not just back up the mail, but I can also back up OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams. So again, we're seeing a lot more attacks now, not just coming in via email, but malicious things that are being shared, over Teams and OneDrive. So the ability to run those same scans on those files. And then the other thing that we also see that is of value is the ability to be able to look at the disclaimers. So a lot of the times, when you have emails that are coming in, you want to be able to, add some disclaimers to that. So for example, a newly registered domain um, tends to, if a domain has been registered in the last couple of days, that's, one of the common traits of people who are trying to perpetrate they're a threat actor, they will register a new domain, and then once it gets compromised, they will move on and read to another one. So domains that registered in the last recently tend to be more suspect. Same thing if you're receiving something from externally for the first time. So maybe it's much more likely that you should be paying a little more attention to that. So these will automatically append to any of those incoming emails. All right, so let's just switch out of here back to our main console. And we're going to take a quick look at under protection at our under a backup storage. There we go. Under archiving. So archiving is kind of an additional feature, and we talked about it a couple of minutes ago when I was showing you how to add the domain. We can also add it for archiving. So this is in early adopter. And but what it does is the difference between backup and archiving is backup is a snapshot of the mail. So again, up to 6 times a day, we can take a snapshot of whatever's in the mailbox and we can back it up. But let's say that you've got someone who's doing either intentionally or unintentionally, they're doing something that they've got a mail that comes in. That's a mail that from a compliance point of view, you need to have a record of. But either they sent it or they received it at, let's say, 9 a.m. At 9:30, they go in and they delete that and they remove it from their deleted folder. And then the backup runs at 10 o'clock. Well, that mail's not going to get captured. So from a compliance point of view, you might be able to easily say, yes, we can show that this, if the mail is there, it's fine, but we can't definitively say the mail doesn't exist. And so from an email archiving point of view, we want to be able to back up all the mailboxes, bring in all the emails, take them into our cloud storage. It's a continuous archiving, right? So it's not something that you're doing any at a particular interval. It's every single time a mail is sent or received, it's going to be added into the archive. And then what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to search that. So today we've got a couple of searches that we've saved here that we've done. So let's start with this one here. And if we want to go in and search, the first thing it's going to do is prompt me for that encryption password. For archiving, it is a requirement that we use encryption. So once I've opened that, it's going to open up these saved searches. So here is, for example, emails with attachments. So it's just going to show me the ones with attachments. I got a couple of options within the archive. I can recover that mail or I could download the attachments. And it will give me the ability, if I select a few of these, I can actually go in and recover or download multiples. I can also see all of the users, both their incoming and outgoing mails. I could also just see all of the emails. So there's still a few more features that we're going to add to this. There's going to be, for example, the ability to import PST, export PST, the ability to do legal hold, e-discovery. So there's lots more. Again, it's still an early adopter. We're still in the phases where we're rolling that out, but it does give you one more way to kind of close that compliance gap. So with that, I think we're going to move back over into the presentation. I've got a couple of just wrap up slides, and then we'll get into the Q&A. So what is the value prop? Like, why would you use ACRONIS as part of your M365 story? Well, first of all, it helps you to eliminate the gaps in your defense. So you can provide email security, you can provide data protection for it, It allows you to upgrade the protection of all of the workloads, so not just 365, but the workstations, everything across the way, giving you easy ability to recover that data, prevents a lot of the downtime, gives you a lot more protection of that than and partnering with ACRONIS, we work closely with IT Cloud, and we make sure that we actually are there for you. So we're really about making sure that you're successful. We're not looking to compete with you. We want to make sure it's easy to turn up those services. We take a modular approach. We have really high value and high margin services. So particularly when it comes to 365, we know that just selling Microsoft seats by themselves is not exactly a profitable business case. However, it's a core service. So and then on top of that, making sure that you have a lot of control over the cost of ownership. It's easy. It's a single interface, so you have one agent, one policy, a single console, and license with a vendor, meaning that and we provide you with a lot of the assets, the training, the sales and marketing support. And I know that IT Cloud does that as well. So you're really in good hands when you work with us to support your 365 business. And the last thing I want to talk about is Acronis Cyber Foundation. So we really like to, we feel we want to make the world a better place. It's not just about being able to protect the data. It's not just about being able to protect the endpoints or the mailbox. It's really about leaving the world a better place. And if you're looking to do that, if you've got a local charitable organization, if there's something you're looking to do, whether that's through education, whether it's through helping out in the community, there may be some resources that we can do that together. So if you're interested, we kind of have we've done a bunch of events. We've done some cleanup events in areas. We've certainly done things where we've done like cybersecurity training in schools. There's lots of different things that we partner with our partners to do. So with that, I'm going to turn things back over to Gabrielle and see if we've got any questions. In which case, we can go ahead and go into Q&A.
Thank you, Stephen. That was great. I mean, from my point of view, just a perception point part is something to be amazed. It's not something we find usually with a lot of backup vendors, but you guys have a ton of cybersecurity products, and you won awards actually in the past for being the top cybersecurity vendor, really a reseller at some award shows. So I'm really glad that you guys are talking about perception point, as it's probably one of the better things if you're going to compare with my other Microsoft products that we can provide here at IT Cloud through Acronis. So yeah, guys, anybody that's watching, do reach out if you have some questions for that. We don't have any Q&As. We don't have any questions in the chat. We do have some comments, but nothing that was necessarily a question. I will, though, leave it out towards the end quotes that I want to do here. So the first thing I want to mention is anything that has to do with the webinar itself today. Of course, this is recorded, so anybody that was here today, you'll be able to rewatch the recording on our YouTube channel and the partner portal as well. So we will have that available for you. And anybody that's watching as a recording right now, please be sure that if you have any questions or you want to reach out to us because of what you've learned here today, you can do so by communicating with us through email, partners@itcloud.ca. That's partners with an S, or by phone, of course, the usual number at option number 6 for the sales team. And of course, if you have any sort of technical questions, we also have our technical support that's there for the Acronis team. Second thing is, you did mention a little bit about the marketing and commercial help that you guys do. So that's something that I find very interesting. We didn't talk about today, but there's a lot of things with Acronis that you guys probably don't know. There's a lot of things at Acronis you guys probably aren't aware of that is a very big advantage for your company. We're talking about SDF funds, we're talking about team up programs and stuff like that. So if you're interested, please do reach out. We'll be happy to address that. And lastly, of course, I do want to talk about the direct billing. So we have direct billing with Acronis since our convention in May. So since last of May, we've been able to provide some direct billing. So if you guys have been waiting for that, or you've been trying to find out what's the best way to enroll your customers, the right billing is definitely available. It's very easy. Do reach out, of course, again, and we'll be able to set that up for you and explain the whole gist of how to set it up, but also what's the bigger advantage between indirect or direct billing with Acronis. And we do have a very unique way of billing Acronis products directly. So I do think there's a question that popped up, so we might be able to do that. I think that's well, Sebastian does work for us, but I'll still go ahead um, and ask the question. Does this replace Perception Point? And if okay, yeah, does this replace Perception Point? And is Perception still available? If so, what is the key difference between Acronis email security and Perception Point? I guess like what differs between the company of Perception Point.
Yeah, so we have partnered with Perception Point. So it is Acronis Advanced Email Security powered by Perception Point. So it is, we've integrated with them, meaning that you don't need a separate account, you don't need separate billing. So you, from the console, you click on the email security. You can manage the licenses exactly the same way as you can the rest of the Acronis licenses. But the engine that is driving that, the technology behind it is Perception Point. It's an integrated solution. So yes, it is Perception Point. That is what Acronis email security is provided by.
Awesome. Great question. Great question, Sebastian. So thank you guys, unless you have something to add, Stephen, but thank you very much for being part of this today and sharing what sharing of course, the success of growing your business by helping others and also the 365 portion of cybersecurity. But thank you again for your knowledge on everything here, because I love when you do demos. I love when you present additional little facts that sometimes we don't expect during these webinars. So thank you very much for attending, and thank you everyone for watching. And again, if you have any questions, please do reach out. We're available. Have a good day.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.